Alright, welcome back guys. So in this video, we're going to look at installing the RADIUSdesk platform on an Apache based web server. Where I am right now is I'm on the RADIUSdesk install page, and on the install page there are a couple of assumptions I'm going to make actually, and this is actually what's under the skills required to install RADIUSdesk. So basically, you should be able to know how to install the Linux operating system, because we're going to use, of course, CentOS, right? So Red Hat Enterprise Linux. You should be able to, kind of edit files using terminal, using tools like VI or Nano. You should be able to install packages from a repository. So for us on the Red Hat based distro, you should be, you should be familiar with using the YOM, or kind of installing from local disk, which we're going to use in a minute. You should be able to know how to compile software, of course, using the configure make install pattern. So you should be able to know how to do that. You should be comfortable with kind of basic, TCP networking, things like IP addressing, kind of pinging, servers and, kind of stuff like that. So, but if, of course, if you are a technical person, of course, then I believe you know all those things. And one of the things you might want to also check out is, if you're not so familiar with Radius, I would advise you check out a book that was written by the author of RADIUSdesk, Dirk van der Walt. The link is here. So the link will be here on Park Publishers. So kind of, it's a nice book. I recommend it a lot. I actually got a copy the moment I saw it came out, and I kind of know a lot about free radios than I used to know. So that's a very helpful book. And since that's taking its time to load, yeah. So of course, Dirk van der Walt went ahead and created a virtual machine, kind of instance of the Radius box, or the RADIUSdesk, running on Ubuntu. So of course, a majority of the installation that is on the wiki or documentation page is geared toward the Debian based or Ubuntu based kind of operating system. So, but our goal is to actually see how we can convert most of these install processes or kind of guide into something that works in CentOS or Red Hat based enterprise Linux. And hopefully that's what we intend to take away in this video. So you can see here, you can have a working Radius server in less than 10 minutes, of course. So you can go ahead and click the link that takes you to a SourceForge page, project page, and there you can download and kind of import it into VirtualBox. At the moment, of course, he made a VirtualBox compatible version only. So if you have like VMware or kind of virtualization system, then of course it's very easy to port it into those virtual machines instance as well. So we're going to go through most of these processes. So, but you can see here, install from source on Ubuntu. So this is what we intend to do, because we need to have flexibility and control. So the page is done. You can see it's just £14, and of course if you're in the US, so of course it should be roughly about kind of $22.94. So of course something you can pick on the ebook, or if you want the print version, then you can just add a couple of bucks to get the print version sent to you as well. All right, so let's get things rolling. But before I do that, I kind of have a bare bone install of CentOS 4 6.4 final. So pretty much what I'll be doing is I'll be using the 6.4 release, and you should be able to follow along if you're using the 6.x release as well. So yeah, so another thing I want to point out before I continue is I will be installing some of these things using the local media. This is because my internet is not too fast at the moment, but I should be able to walk you through the documentation process as we move along. So yeah, so one of these I like to do is actually make a directory here. I'll just call it tools. So this is not necessary, but for me, I already went ahead and downloaded kind of some of the preparatory packages and stuff, things that will save us from going to the internet and downloading most of those big files. So what I intend to do is to actually kind of copy it over. So what I will do is I will kind of just launch a copy of WinSCP, which I have here. So let me just edit one of this and connect to I'm going to connect to the Radius box machine. So this should be just fine. Yes. Okay, it's okay. Anyway, so like I said, this is not really required, but you can kind of go ahead and use any means you feel necessary. So I'm going to copy majority of these files, excluding the Nginx version. I already have a kind of a screencast coming up after this course that will just deal with Nginx specific tweaks. So but for now, I'm just going to go ahead and copy almost everything here in the directory. I made them myself, so just going to go ahead and deselect the RADIUSdesk tools, but kind of copied everything here. Okay, so I'll move it to our server. So this is more of like a preparatory work, so that I don't have to waste so much time downloading and copying most of the files, as you'll see when we go through the documentation. But in other words, what I tend to do is to click on the install using Apache. Remember, this is an alternative. So yeah, so this is what we intend to do as well, cover through the install guide here in Apache. So why we need this page actually is just to kind of have this directory that kind of sets some filters and how to kind of compress the output before you take it out to the users. So this is a very necessary step. Of course, you can do an SVN checkout of the current SVN version here. So yeah, if you have a very fast internet, go ahead and do that, of course. Yeah, so XJS and pretty much things that is kind of required that we do here. So of course, if you are on Apache, then of course you can go ahead and kind of tweak this to suit your need and all. So but now we're just doing all this for Apache. All right, so yeah, so this should have copied the files. Yes, it did. So one of the things we want to start with here is to kind of have an install of Cake PHP. But before we do that, let's make sure we have our LAMP stack set up. So in CentOS, of course, taking up Apache, MySQL, and PHP and all that. So I'm going to use the kind of the local media. I already have the ISO image mounted. So I'm just going to go ahead and disable any repo that I have there and point it to the C6 media that I have. I'm just going to go ahead and install some files here. Of course, most of the files I'm going to install will be the MySQL server. Of course, we're going to install HTTPD. We're going to install PHP, MySQL. Of course, some of them will resolve as dependencies, and PHP, CLI, PHP, GD, this for the graphics and all. So I mean, if you're wondering some of these files, of course we'll be adding some of these files as needed. Of course, you can see we require the PHP curl. So you can see the package name I'm typing here is slightly different from what you have in the documentation, and this is because these are CentOS specific packages. All right, so I'm putting -y flag here just to go ahead and accept the install process. So this should start and take just a little time, course, after resolving dependencies and all, so we should just be fine here. Of course, you can see there's added packages like the dbd MySQL, dbi, and of course the PDO, which is required in most PHP setups. All right, so while that's going on, of course, the next task we need to do is to kind of download Cake PHP. So of course you can click on this link here to download the recent or current Cake PHP release from the tags that you have. So let's go ahead and copy that link. So all right, so you can see the recent one is 2.2.9. Yeah, so this should be part of our downloads if you're kind of wondering if we have that. Yeah, so if you check tools, you can see we have the Cake PHP 229 here. This is stable. So the first thing we need to do actually is to extract the Cake PHP installation file. So make sure we extract that. All right, so we use the wrong flag there. All right, so sorry for that. So so what we need to do now is to move the Cake PHP file that we extracted from here to our web accessible path. So because we install HTTPD, of course we don't have access to the var.html directory. So this is the root, the default root directory in Red Hat based distribution, CentOS specific, and of course Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So of course if you change this in the future, then you can go ahead and make those tweaks. All right, so we move those files, and of course we need to go ahead and rename that. So change it from cake or create a symlink. Anyone is fine. In fact, what I've seen people do is to just kind of create a symlink or symbolic link to from cake PHP, to cake 2 basically. So that way you have, sorry, this is supposed to be the other way around. So we create a symbolic link for this. Gonna call it cake 2. So we have, so we have a directory here called cake 2, and basically just a symbolic link to the main cake 2 installation here. So this should be fine. Another thing we need to do as well is to go back to our tools directory, and we need to kind of extract the SVN files that was, I just downloaded this and sent it up. So of course this should be as a result of you doing the SVN checkout process here. So we need to do this, right? So we need to have subversion installed, and for you to go ahead and do all this. So but for me, I went ahead and downloaded that beforehand. So I'm just going to kind of extract the latest version. Okay, so I should be able to copy the latest RD cake directory here, and I should be able to move it in our HTML cake 2 directory here. So once we move that, we can go ahead and actually make this readable and writable by the web server user. So by default, if you install CentOS, this should be Apache. Or of course, we can just make the whole directory owned by that. So it's the same thing. So what we need to do here is to make sure we kind of start some of our services. So service MySQL D, kind of start. So we start the MySQL server. Okay, so once that starts, we can go ahead and start the service httpd start. This is for Apache. So you can see all those. Of course we can make them persistent, so this simply means we want them to start on boot. So we need these two to start on boot as well. And of course, let's do some preparatory work as well before we actually start getting some of those errors. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of edit the PHP file, and we need to make sure that we set some time zones. Right, so for me, my time zone will be, depending on when you were installing this your operating system. Of course, you must have chosen a time zone. So for me to be Africa Lagos. So if you're wondering where to find some of this or the time zone, of course you can go ahead and check the clocks directive here. You can see that in your clocks the zone is set to Africa Lagos. So so that's how I knew that. So of course can go ahead and kind of restart httpd here to take the new directive. All right, so we've done all that. Next thing we need to do, as the documentation says, of course, to make it writable. So we've done this already, is to make sure we set up the MySQL database user. So we need to, first of all, before you do that, I recommend you kind of password the default root installation, except you want to remove the root password or root user by itself. Of course, it's a good thing to start with. So of course, there's a script in the sbin directory, so MySQL secure installation. So of course, just follow the wizard to help you set up your system. So enter current password for root, it's none, and yes, we need to set a root password to set it to something very secure. Yes, we need to remove anonymous users. No, we want to allow remote login of root user, and we want to remove the test directory and reload the privileges. So the quick kind of go away, but of course now then of course we need to log in with a password and create the RD database. So documentation says we create a database like that and grant or create a user. We're giving it all privileges here. Okay, so giving it on this database to user. So we're going to create an RD user, and this user is going to be localhost and identified. This will be the password by the password RD. So we can go ahead and set that, I'm going to migrate. So identified by, so missing the by directive here, of course, and we can just go ahead and throw in this just in case the localhost does not resolve for any reason. Yeah. All right, so now we have our MySQL installation. So the next thing we need to do is to go into the var.html directory in the cake2 subdirectory rdcake. There's a directory. Just double check your config directory. Here you can see you have database. Yeah, so we need to use nano here, and of course here you can see that the default login is root or rd and the password is rd and rd. So remember to change this if you modify the default install that we're trying to do here. Of course, what we're interested in is the setup directory in the db subdirectory. Here you can see we have the RADIUSql export of file, so we need to import that. So we need to import that using the rd user, right? So using the rd user and of course the password on the rd database. So we need to copy the rd.sql file, and this should go ahead and import the user. So of course we now have the user. The next thing we need to do, also we'll come back to that, is to set up Apache. So we've done all this, so we need to configure this. Luckily, if you're running CentOS, the mode rewrite and most of those files are already enabled. So but if you're wondering where to set them, it should be in the conf.d in the headers section. So you can see we have the expires module, we have the mod deflate, and then we have the mod headers file. All right, so we already have this set up. If you don't, then make sure you enable that and restart Apache. Then we need to add this directive here to Apache file. So make sure you copy this and take it back to somewhere at the end. You can just say rd radius desk specific add-ons. So of course you can go ahead and paste this file, and make sure that you actually change these files before you restart Apache, because you can get an error. So in CentOS, this is supposed to be the httpd directive here, so we need to change that. And of course the directory we're going to have cake2 needs to have this. So this is the CentOS specific change, but apart from that, the directive or the changes remains the same. Of course, you can tweak the date if you wish. This is just to make you have an expired or an expiry for your static files. All right, so that being said, of course we can go ahead and restart Apache. Once we have Apache restarted, then of course we can go ahead and throw in this test. But before we do that, make sure we can hit the the CentOS box. So you can see we have Apache test running. So let's go ahead and copy this link and change this to match our setup. Okay, and hopefully if we've done everything right, so we should be able to get the JSON file as you see here. So but if you don't and you have an error, make sure you go and check the varlog httpd error file. This will tell you a lot of the gotchas in your setup. So for us, you can see here indexed by this directive, of course, but of course you can see that can't find the favicon, which is fine. You can omit that. Yeah, pretty much that's it. So of course, the next thing that we need to do is to ensure we install the viewer component. So the viewer component is required because of course we can go ahead and use this. This is not RD. RD is something that looks so nice. So so we can go ahead and go into our tools directory here. Of course, copy the latest RD file into the var.html. Make sure it is a var.html and not var.html cake2, because this is the web accessible RD RADIUSdesk viewer. Okay, so once we copy that, the next thing we need to do is to actually, kind of unzip the, x the zip file. So this is XJS. It's a big file. Depending on the speed of your machine, this might take a while to extract. But once you have it downloaded, then of course you can continue. And what I intend to do is to kind of provide upload this to kind of a part on a server where you can just go ahead and download everything encompassing and then go ahead and install, instead of you also going and looking for those files. Alright, so once that's done, of course we can extract the xjx file to X. This is strictly based on the the documentation. Here you can see what we expected to do, kind of rename to X and then copy some files. Alright, so within the X directory, we are expected to copy, in the examples directory, the UX, expected to copy it into the src directory. So once we do that, of course we can move X to live inside var html rd, and once we do that, then kind of can make sure that the whole path is owned by Apache. So this is a normal stuff we need to do, and we need to do some housework, right? So house cleanup work. So we need to go into rd, and right inside the app.js file, we need to comment this first line and uncomment the second one. This is for performance, kind of optimization, because it needs to kind of bootstrap all the JS or JavaScript files, and we need to go into the index.js file here, and we need to change this from debug to all. So we're going to use one that is fully encompassing, and hopefully once we do that, we should be able to hit the RD page, and yeah, so we've done all this. You can see where we did all this, and we need to make sure that cron script is running, and of course make sure you have cron installed and kind of ready to go. So PHP Config cron D on, this is just in case. This is already on by default, but we need to make sure it's set by default. So once that's done, we can go ahead and kind of copy the rd or the cron.d into etc cron.d file, and kind of make some changes to it. So let's do that. We need to go back into var html cake to rd cake setup. We need to go into the cron directory and copy rd into the cron.d directory, and we need to modify that. So cron.d rd file. So here we need to replace the data user. This is an Ubuntu user for Apache. We need to replace that with Apache, which we're using in CentOS, and we need to also replace the /cake. So we need to replace this with /html/cake. We need to affect all of them, and once we do that, we should be able to get the correct path set in CentOS. Alright, so once that's done, the next step is to actually test the RD front end. Of course, if you change the default interval at which the script gets executed, then you have to just edit the RD file. So but before we do that, then we can go ahead and test the viewer component and see if that works. So the default username is root and the default password is admin. Alright, so let's see how if this works. So let's remove all this and just substitute /rd. So if we've done everything correctly, we should be able to have the login page as you see here. We should be able to log in with the user root and the password admin. Log in, and if you log in like this successfully, then congratulations, you've set up RADIUSdesk on Apache based server. The rest will be installing free radios and all that. So but this video has covered a lot already, and as you can see, if you kind of have any problem, always just just send us an email, send me an email. Let me know when you have problems, or promise if I have time I'll help you. Of course, but most of this, what we've gone through this video, should be fine and should be, basically what you need. So like I said, this will be available on the there'll be a link that will kind of take you to a point where you can download this off my web server or my kind of blog page, so just to kind of save you from kind of having to go scout around some of those files. But of course, I recommend you download the complete files or the latest version of the files in their respective websites. So hopefully this video has been useful. So continuing on, we're going to kind of move on to the next video, and hopefully I'll see you there. So thanks a lot.